Hey everybody, and welcome to Aesthetic Imaging Video Tutorials. Let's just jump right into it and see what we're going to be creating today. Alright, so we got this pretty awesome scene, bunch of fireflies moving about, and we're actually going to show you how to create these fireflies, and we're going to be using expressions. Alright, this is going to be a very complex but kind of simple in the same way, I guess you could say. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So we're going to start off by creating a new composition. We're going to call this main comp. And we're going to set this to 10 seconds, 23.976 frames per second, 1920 by 1080. Now, this frame rate, keep this in mind. We're going to need this exact frame rate coming up. Now, if you do something besides 23.976, you need to remember which frame rate you actually did use. That's important. So let's hit OK. And here we have this little picture, this little photo I got from textures.com. It's free if you want to pick it up. You just got to create a free account. But yeah, this is going to be our background plate. And we're just going to scale this up and move it down. Now we want fireflies. And we need to change this from day to night. And this is not like a very good way of doing it, but it's the way we're doing it for this, just because day for night photography is not the focus. All right, so we're going to add a curves. And we're going to bring this down to about here. And then we're going to take the midpoint. We're going to drag it down. Something like that, maybe. All right, so let's add a tint. Color correction tint. Let's put that above our curves. Set this to something kind of lower, like 40% or 41 if you want. All right, so we're going to go to the red channel, and we're going to bring the red down. And then we're going to go into the blue channel and bring the blue up. And you go. You can adjust. And, of course, you can adjust this till you get something you like. Let's bring this down even further. This is something like that. I don't know. It's not really important. All right, so we got our really bad day for night. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to click off of this layer, make sure it's not selected. We're going to go to our Ellipse Tool, and we're going to double click that, open up Contents, Ellipse 1, Ellipse Path 1, and we're going to go to Size, unlink these, and we're going to type in 1080. So we're going to make this 1080 by 1080. That'll make it a perfect circle. Click that link back on, and then we can shrink this down. All right, so let's do Shift Command H. That'll hide any overlays so we can actually see our little circle. And we're just gonna bring this down to about maybe 6. Now on top of that, we're also gonna add a fast box blur. So blur and sharpen, fast box blur. Let's throw that right on top of there. And bring this up to about like 1. And another thing we're going to add is VC Color Vibrance. VC Color Vibrance. It's by Video Copilot. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can get this. It's actually also free. So we're going to add that to our shape layer. Maybe do fill empty background, and that's it. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to hit T to bring up the opacity. And we're going to set a keyframe at the first frame here and set this to 0. All right. And then maybe come in 3 frames, set this to 100. Go over like 4 frames or something like that. Click on this little button to add another keyframe. And then over 2 frames, maybe put it to 0. And have like a 2 frame gap. Another keyframe. Set this to 100. So basically we're just, we're turning this on and off. So we're at 100. Let's go 3 frames, keyframe, 0. Maybe add another keyframe to 0. Set this to 100. 4 frames, 100. And then set this to 0. A couple frames over. Now let's take a look at this, see what's going on. All right, cool. If we hit N right here, maybe we can repeat it. Just see what it's looking like when it repeats. So actually what we're going to do is maybe go 2 frames, 4 frames, and then another keyframe here. All right, so now we have a nice little blink setup. Yeah, it looks good. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to alt-click on the stopwatch here. So we're going to type in loop with a lowercase l, out with an uppercase O, and we're going to put, and then we're going to type in a parentheses, type equals cycle. When we press play, we'll see that our animation of our opacity is looped. So basically this is saying play this bunch, and then immediately, once that's finished, go back to beginning and start playing it again, and keep doing that over time. All right, maybe select this last keyframe, have a little bit more of a gap in between flashes. Maybe even a little bit more. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so now what we want to do is hit P under our shape layer to bring up the position. So what we're going to do is right-click on position and go to separate dimensions. Now under X, which is our horizontal or left and right, we're going to alt-click on the stopwatch and type in wiggle. And we're going to do 0.4, comma, 800. So what this is doing is it's saying that 0.4 times a second, our Firefly is going to be moving left to right in 800 increments. So 800 left and 800 right, and some random value in between. So now we have our little guy kind of moving around like this. So now we're going to go to our Y position, alt-click, type wiggle, and we're going to do maybe like 0.5 times a second at 400. All right, so now we can see that our little Firefly is just moving around our frame, all happy to just be there. Look at him go. He's just having a ball. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to turn on motion blur as well. So we got our Firefly moving around. So what we're going to do is we're going to precompose this. Actually, let's call this Firefly. Boom. All right, so we're going to right click and go to precompose, or Shift Command C, or layer precompose. Move all attributes, and we're going to call this Firefly PC for precomposition. How about that? Boom. If we look at our Firefly here, it has a black background, simple fix, go to our modes. If you don't see that, toggle switches and modes right here. And we're going to set this to add. And that'll take away our black background. All right, fit up to 100%. Now, one firefly does not make a swarm of firefly. Does not a swarm... one... Now, one firefly does not make... Okay. Now, one firefly does not a swarm make. So, simple enough. Let's duplicate it a whole bunch of times. And our firefly just turned into a super firefly. Well, that's not what we want. What we want to do is offset all of these layers so that they play at a different time. All right, so we're going to delete all of them and actually duplicate one. We're going to take this bottom one. We're going to call this Firefly's main. And we'll call this one Firefly 01. So we're going to select both of these layers. We're going to right click, go to time, enable time remapping, and click on that. So now we've added time remapping to this. All right, so now we have a frame where our firefly is visible. All right, so now that we have this, let's create a new null object. Anything that you can add effects to will work. So let's go to our effects and presets, and we're going to add a slider control to our null. All right, so now we're going to call this time offset. And we want to click on this little lock here so that our effects controls panel stays up. So what we're going to do now is we're going to alt click on the Firefly 01's stopwatch for the time remap. So alt click, and we're going to type in time offset. So the first word is lowercase, while the second word is uppercase or capitalized. Now that's true for any expressions. If it contains more than one word, the first word is lowercase, second word, third, and so on are capitalized. So that's just a pretty important thing to know. Without it, everything falls apart. All right, so we're going to type in equals, and we're going to take our pick whip, and we're going to pick whip it to the slider of our time offset. And then we're going to hit divided by our frame rate, 23.976. Now this comes back to what I said in the beginning. If you used a different frame rate, you are going to put that number in here. So whatever your composition is, that's what the frame rate's going to be. All right, let's do a semicolon, hit enter. And now we're going to type in base time equals. All right, so we're going to take the pick whip, connect it to the time remap of our Firefly's main. Make sure you're doing it to the time remap and not the actual layer. Time remap. All right, semicolon, that's it for that line. Now we're going to type in my index equals. Okay, so for this one, we're going to pick whip it to the actual layer and not the time remap. So Firefly's main dot index minus index semicolon. All right, so these first three lines, there's only one more line that we need to do for this. These first three lines are kind of defining the terms that we're going to use in the equation for this time remapping. All right, so hit enter. And now the equation is base time plus parentheses my index times time offset. All right, semicolon. And now when we click off of here, if everything went right, We should have no errors. And we should have our FIREFLY not looking like anything has changed. Let's go to a frame where it's visible. Yeah, that's a good one right there. So now, let's bump up this number. You see, as we bump it up, the frame that it's reading from changes. So what we're doing here is we're taking the index of this guy and subtracting this index for our layer, and we're getting a value of 1. So that number 1 is being multiplied by our time offset in here. So for this instance, it is going 29 frames in the time offset being multiplied by 1 layer and adding that number to the base time. It's using the same animation, but it's just offsetting it by 29 frames. All right, so this becomes more clear. So all we have to do to just fill our scene is just duplicate that top layer. All right, so let's play this back. Now, you can still kind of see the pattern going on here. And as you notice, because we only have 10 seconds worth of animation going on, we need to actually bump that up. So we're going to double click on any one of these layers because they're all the same. All right, and we're going to go to composition, composition settings, and we're going to change this to, I don't know, 50 seconds. All right, make sure we bring our layer all the way to the end here. So that way we just get more time in our animation here. All right, so now we have some lovely little fireflies going around. There's still an element of repetition here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all of our duplicates here, leaving only Firefly 01 and Firefly main, and we're going to delete all of them. All right, we're going to double tap U. That'll bring up our expressions. And what we want to do is add another slider control. So let's go to Effects and Presets. We already have slider control typed in. There we go. All right, so this one's going to be called Randomize Time. There we go, Randomize Time. And we're going to add 3 more lines to this. So let's start defining our terms. So we're going to put this before our base time, equation that we put in. And for this, we're going to do seed random parentheses index comma true. So what this is going to do is this is going to use our layers index as a random seed. So that's cool. Semicolon, enter. All right, so for this next line, we're going to type in random time, stop doing spaces, amount, AMT, equals. So now we're going to take our pick whip and we're going to connect it to the slider of the randomized time. And then we're going to do divided by, and then our frames per second again. Semicolon, hit enter. Now we're going to type in random actual, and then equals. And then we're going to type in random parentheses minus random time amount, comma, random time amount. Oh, looks like I got two different versions. Aha. Make sure you have everything nice and neat. Random time amount. Random time actual, there we go. So where was I? Yes, random actual equals random minus random time amount, comma, random time amount. So that is telling After Effects that when we have this set, it can either go in either direction. So if this is set to 53, it can go to 53 and minus 53. It's kind of like the wiggle. It's like a really complex wiggle. All right, so let's turn this to 0. Now we want to add a line. We want to add something to our equation. So at the end of it, before the semicolon, we're going to type in plus random actual. And that's it. Click off. Hopefully everything goes well. And it did. No errors. Now we can adjust the random. So what this is doing is this is giving us our time offset. It's basically just like duplicating the layer and then offsetting the top one like that. You know, so they start at different times. Now what the random is doing is allowing it to start like maybe at 3 seconds in and then go. All right, so we have our expressions in there. So let's just duplicate our fireflies a whole bunch of times. Play this back and look what we got. We got a bunch of fireflies running around. So the nice thing about using this expression for the looping is that when we changed our layer length, we didn't need to add more keyframes. It automatically just keeps on looping. So we have our one guy. Let's scale him down just a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit better. And the nice thing is, and if you ever want to change these expressions, I mean, yeah, you do have to delete all the duplicates that you made and change this one, but then all you have to do is just smash that duplicate button, Command D, and just fill your scene. Now when you play this back, it doesn't look like it's just the same animation repeated over again. All right, so that is our little firefly scene. I mean, these expressions can be used for a lot of different things. So actually, this time offset, not the time random, is the expression that I used for my original intro little plate that I used for these tutorials. All those little lines, I didn't animate all of them by my... not crazy. No, I just used this expression to offset the time. But these are very useful expressions, and I really hope I did justice in explaining them and made it clear just what they're doing, so that you can write your own expressions for your own animations eventually. All right, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.